they want to steal a victory, we must not allow them to occupy Nigeria. When the country is paralyzed, then they will find solutions. We should make sure that the youth don't accept. That's all.
Yes.
Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, just held its presidential and national assembly elections on the 25th of February. Results have been announced and a winner has not only emerged, but has already been issued a certificate of return. But the collation of results has been a subject of dispute, and apart from party agents, no less a person than former President Olusegun Obasanjo has called for the cancellation of the results. But Nigerians, including contemporary historians, are asking the former president questions, many of which sound like, "Sir, what did you do when you had the opportunity to conduct credible elections?" You're welcome to this episode of our short video series drawn from the regular Friday column titled Conversation with Azu. Azu, the award-winning columnist, will be answering some of these questions on this channel. It's good to have you, sir.
My pleasure to be back again on this show. Thanks for having me, Julius.
Today's video is based on the column which focuses on the just concluded presidential elections in Nigeria and the intervention of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. It is titled, "What Really Matters to Obasanjo?" You're welcome to watch, like, and share the content. Do stay tuned. We'll go straight to the question and answer session to deepen the conversation. Your article references the 2007 general elections and the role of former President Obasanjo in defense of himself some 10 years ago, that is in
2010.
In 2010, the president had said even Jesus Christ could not conduct undisputed elections in Nigeria.
That's correct.
Would you say the president is now contradicting himself?
Thanks very much for that question, because and I'd also once again like to thank subscribers and viewers for logging in. Now, let me go straight to your question. I do not think that what he said in 2010 was a slip of the tongue. When you flash back, I think that it was he said it knowing full well what happened in 2007. It was one of the most shambolic elections, as I said, and he just said that to excuse himself.
You have drawn a parallel between Obasanjo's letter to the president on the general elections and the annulment of the June 12 elections. You also drew an analogy to the incitement by former US President Donald Trump on the outcome of the United States general elections. Would you say that the APC and other leaders have accused the planning, have accused some subterranean forces of planning to truncate the 2023 general elections with an interim government? Does President Obasanjo's intervention fall into this perspective?
I do not think that there is, with the benefit of history, we do not need to speculate much. In 1993, of course, we know what happened. An election was held in this country, and the results were pretty much out in the public space. And then some shadowy folks then went to the court and obtained a very egregious judgment to so-called annul the election. It was like an attempt to abort a baby that had been born. But yes, when I speak about Obasanjo in relation to what happened in 1993, when I draw the parallel and the similarity, it's basically because, as you would recall, Julius, he was one of the most significant beneficiaries of that. How was he? You remember that after that he made the infamous statement in South Africa that Abiola was not the Messiah. But we know the outcome of all of that. He joined forces teamed up with those who were pushing for an interim national government. And then, of course, what happened. But in 1999, it turned out that the major competing forces in the country teamed up and said, look, to assuage the feelings, especially the feelings of the Southwest, that it was not just the Southwest that was outraged by what happened, But just to to assuage the general sentiment in the country at that time, someone from the southwest had to step in, and of course, Obasanjo was the beneficiary. Shonekon came in before that, but we know what happened. How Abacha,
shoved him
aside, and then elections were held. There was a transitional government after Abiola died in detention. And then, the result of that 1999 election was that Obasanjo became president. I think that in retrospect, it does seem to me that is probably the sort of model that he would like replayed. And that was why I made the parallel.
Okay. The elections have had a surprising outcome, and the president lost his state. The APC chairman lost his state. The president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, lost his state. And yet, the parties are talking about the results already being rigged. What would you have to say about that?
Well, let me start by saying that the election started on a fairly shaky note. I was one of those who went out on Saturday, the 25th of February, to vote. So I'm speaking from the benefit of my experience on that day. Most folks had expected that, as had been promised by INEC, that things will go on far more smoothly than what we saw. I mean, you finished voting, the results will be uploaded on the portal, and of course will also be snapped and transmitted. And the parties involved, including INEC and agents and everyone, will have the benefit of finding out exactly what was happening.
Viewing the result real time.
Exactly. So that expectation had, of course, been primed by the promise. So there was a promise of performance. That promise of performance did not obviously take into recognition or take into cognizance the scaling issue, which has become, that although the elections had been done in a similar fashion in Edo, in Osun, and in Anambra states. But Nigeria is a fairly large and complicated country, and the scope of infrastructure that we have obviously had problems supporting that process. But again, it reminds me of what happened with Obamacare, and someone had referred to it, when there was such promise of, making healthcare more available to more folks out. The day the website for Obamacare opened, because of the surge, which had not been foreseen, there was a collapse. Now, that's not making any excuses, because INEC promised to deliver free and fair election and transparent election, and they prescribed how all of this was going to be done. And that was what Nigerians expected. But now let's talk about the results, and you talk about disappointment. The disappointment, I think, was pretty much on all sides. It wasn't only on the side of the APC, whose presidential candidate won the election. There were moments also that other parties felt, that the promise. I think essentially what happened was that the parties who lost, especially the other two parties, felt that INEC had not delivered on its promise. Okay. So that is that. But the thing is that if you look at the outcome of the result as well, if you look at the outcome of the election, you would see surprises. Like you said, no one would have imagined before that election that APC would lose
in Lagos.
That the APC will lose in Kaduna, or that the APC will lose in Nasarawa, or that the PDP will lose in Delta. So the surprise is not surprise only on one side. I think it was a fairly evenly distributed surprise, if I may use that phrase. And folks who want to challenge, I don't want to go too much into that, because we have already heard that both the PDP and the Labour Party
are going to court.
Yes, and which will help us. But also keep in mind that as of 2015, we had seen from under the current dispensation that under the current INEC dispensation that the Independent National Electoral Commission, the election management body, had managed substantially to reduce the amount of court-awarded judgments. So we hope to see whether this particular election will stand up to the same scrutiny, and we follow that trend and pattern.
All right. Lastly, I would ask, there's a bandwagon effect generated by the Labour Party. And it has triggered the emergence, as it is reported in the press, of a member of the House of Representatives who is a motorcycle rider from one of the states in the north. What do you think will be the quality of representation in the National Assembly going into the 19th session of the National Assembly?
Well, Julius, I would like to start by not denigrating or despising any particular group of persons or people who are engaged in certain services, because we know that in Nigeria you can find an Okada rider who has a degree.
Yes.
Or
definitely.
a pep rider who has a master's degree, or a truck driver who has a PhD. So I think it would be too much of a generalization to assume that because somebody is an Okada rider, they are not qualified if they have been elected and proven elected by that. So I will not go into that. But I think that it is concerning, and I'm not the only one who has expressed this view, that perhaps because of the bandwagon effect, it remains to be seen whether Labour Party took time to scrutinize the candidates that it was putting forward. It does seem, from what we have seen so far, that virtually anybody in a number of the states put forward by Labour could have won, irrespective of their background or the quality of what they have to present. We wait to see what that actually is concerning, because before, one would normally expect that each of the parties will have ways of, if you like, filtering the candidates who finally get their ticket to ensure that it is putting its best foot forward with every candidate that is coming forward. But I think it's interesting for us to sit back and then watch whether the candidates that have been elected in many states on the Labour ticket, but also remember that there are very good candidates that we know that rode on Labour tickets and won. But yes, your concern is very correct. We wait to see whether those who have won on Labour tickets are actually those who can deliver the goods as they have been voted to do.
On that note, I'll repeat the phrase, we wait to see. Thank you, Mr. Azu, for deepening the conversation. Conversations with Azu, published on the back page of Leadership newspaper and syndicated in the Vanguard of the same day. It is further syndicated in Nigeria, in Argentina, in Ghana, South Africa, and also in Europe and the United States of America. Be sure to follow, like, and share our page. Above all, visit azuishiekwene.com to read the entire column Conversation with Azu. Let's deepen the conversation on this page always. Drop your relevant, civil, and polite comments, suggestions, observations on the subject at Twitter/Azu Ishiekwene. I'll take that again. At Twitter/Azu Ishiekwene. Azu Ishiekwene is one word. Azu capital A, Ishiekwene capital I. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Thanks for having me.